There is a specific kind of nightmare that most people never seriously consider because it feels like it belongs in fiction. Not being accused of something you didn't do. That happens, and most of us can imagine it. I mean being accused of something you didn't do, where there is evidence, documents, messages, a digital trail with your name on it, time-stamped, detailed, and entirely consistent. Where the case against you is not a misunderstanding, and not a mistaken identity, and not a witness who got it wrong. Where somebody built it. This is the case of Michelle Hadley. And I want to say the most important thing at the very start, before anything else, because this story has been told badly before, and the telling itself did damage. Michelle Hadley did not do any of it. Not one thing she was accused of. She was completely innocent, and she was proven completely innocent. Everything that follows should be understood in that light. In Verify, Michelle Hadley was a 29-year-old graduate student. She had recently ended a relationship. Her former partner had a new wife. That is, on its own, an entirely ordinary situation that millions of people navigate every year without incident. And then, a body of evidence began to accumulate that appeared to show Michelle conducting a sustained, escalating campaign against them. I'm going to describe the shape of that evidence rather than its contents, and I'm going to be deliberately non-specific about the mechanics, for reasons I'll explain later. It was digital, it was extensive, it spanned multiple platforms. It had internal consistency. The pieces referenced each other, corroborated each other, and built a coherent, escalating narrative over time. It contained personal details that appeared to be knowledge only she would have. And it named her, repeatedly, explicitly. By the standards that investigators had been trained on, this was not a thin case. It was an unusually strong one. Most cases are built on ambiguity, a witness who is fairly sure, a timeline that roughly fits. This one had documentation. She was arrested. Here's the question that the entire case turns on, and it's more uncomfortable than it first appears. Why did everyone believe it? Not because anyone was stupid, not because anyone was lazy. I want to be careful here because the easy version of this story is that investigators were incompetent, and I don't think that's the honest reading. They believed it because of an assumption that had been reliable for most of the history of criminal investigation and had only recently stopped being reliable. The assumption is this: fabricating a large volume of internally consistent evidence is harder than committing the crime. For most of the 20th century, that was simply true. Forging a document required materials, equipment, skill, and time. Forging 50 documents that all corroborated each other required an operation. The effort curve was steep enough that fabrication at scale was, practically speaking, rare, and when it happened, the effort left traces. So investigators, courts, and juries developed a reasonable heuristic. Volume implies authenticity. A lot of consistent evidence is unlikely to be fake, because faking a lot of consistent evidence is very hard. That heuristic is now obsolete. And this case is one of the clearest demonstrations of the moment it broke. Because in a digital environment, the cost of producing the 50th piece of corroborating material is approximately the cost of producing the first. The effort curve went flat, and every institution downstream, police, prosecutors, courts, was still using a heuristic calibrated for a world where it wasn't. Michelle Hadley was held in custody. I want to slow down here because this is the part that true crime as a genre routinely skips, and it's the part that actually matters. She was a graduate student. That means an academic program, with deadlines, with funding, with a supervisor and a cohort and a trajectory. All of it stopped. She faced charges carrying the possibility of years in prison. Not weeks, years. And here is the thing about being innocent in that position that people who haven't experienced it consistently get wrong. Being innocent does not feel reassuring. It feels insane. Because you know with total certainty that you did not do this. And in front of you is a mountain of evidence saying you did. Which means either the world has stopped functioning or nobody is ever going to believe you. There is no argument you can make. I didn't do it, is what everybody says. Your certainty is worth nothing, because certainty is not evidence, and the other side has evidence. She lost her freedom, her studies, her reputation, and, for a period, any reasonable expectation that this would ever be corrected. Sit with that for a moment, because we're about to get to the part where it is corrected. And the relief of that ending tends to erase everything that came before it. It shouldn't. Every case on this channel has one. The thread. The single detail that doesn't sit right, that somebody notices, that when pulled, takes the entire structure apart. In this case, what unraveled it was the nature of digital evidence itself, the same property that made the fabrication possible in the first place. Because digital material has a second layer. There is the content, what the message says, and then there is the metadata, where it came from, when, from which device, through which network path. Anyone constructing false evidence controls the first layer completely. They write the content. They choose what it says. The second layer is much harder to control because it isn't authored. It's generated automatically by systems that the fabricator doesn't own and can't fully see. And when investigators eventually examined that second layer properly, the story it told did not match the story the content told. The charges against Michelle Hadley were dropped. She was exonerated. Every single accusation against her was false and had been from the beginning. Confirm conviction status and sentence before stating anything. If unverified, say only that the matter was investigated and do not name anyone. So let's be precise about the lesson, because there's a lazy version of it and a true one. The lazy version is you can't trust anything you see online. That's not useful. It's a shrug pretending to be wisdom. The true version has 3 parts. 1. The cost of fabricating evidence has collapsed, and institutions have not fully adjusted. Police procedure, prosecutorial standards, and jury instruction were all built in an era where volume implied authenticity. That inference is no longer safe, and correcting it is slow, expensive institutional work that mostly hasn't happened. 2. The most dangerous evidence isn't the most dramatic, it's the most consistent. A fabricator can create a large, coherent body of evidence because they're controlling the story. 3. And this should unsettle you. This case was solved. Michelle Hadley was exonerated, but it raises the question, how many weren't? Her story became the Netflix documentary, A Toxic Love Story. But documentaries need endings. Reality doesn't. The tools that made this possible haven't disappeared. They've only become easier to use. The only protection is that most people don't want to do this. Michelle Hadley was innocent. She always was. And that's what matters. Thread pulled. If you want the case that this one most resembles, a different country, a different decade, the same structural failure, it's linked below. Subscribe to Dark Thread for a new case every week. And I'd like to hear this one in the comments, seriously. How would you prove you didn't send something? Take a minute with it. It's harder than it sounds.